Great. I'm Carol Taylor-Brown, the Chief Executive of NHS Suffolk, and very honoured to say I've met Gregory here. We met about a year ago, and Gregory came in to see me. Had asked to see all the Chief Executives, managed to get me in. I don't think you managed to get another one, did you? No, we didn't. But we had representatives from everywhere, and he came in and he spoke to me about DisabledGo. And he just captured me immediately with the passion and just the common sense, really, of what he was saying about the need for people to be able to access buildings. I don't know if many of you know this, but it was an immediate identity for me, because myself, I had recently come back from a long period off. I'd been poorly with breast cancer, but I'd also had a spinal infection, and I had had just a taste of what it felt like to be a patient trying to access our buildings, and I have to say, I was ashamed. I was very poorly, as people do when they go through the cancer, and certainly with the spinal, I found the difficulties of using a wheelchair for some time. I also found the difficulties of walking on a stick, and just the sheer weakness that you can sometimes have coping with everyday life when you're very poorly. I remember walking into physiotherapy. I wanted to walk, I wanted to get up and walk because it had been quite a difficult time for me. And physiotherapy at West Suffolk Hospital, for those of you who don't know, is up a hill. You have to park your car, because there's not many disabled bays there anyway. You have to park your car, then you have to get up quite a steep flight of steps. And then you have to go up a little slope, which doesn't sound anything when you're able-bodied, but it's enormously challenging when you're feeling weak or having difficulty with your mobility. And then the doors aren't automatic. You have to, you have to balance on your sticks and open it. Then the next doors, you have to push. So you get to physiotherapy reception, exhausted, and then you've got to do your physio. Pain clinic in Ipswich Hospital is on the 9th floor. I have never realised what a daunting experience that is. You look and you just hope that that lift is working, because there's no way you're going to get up there. And then it really opened my eyes, and I started to look around at some of the facilities. When I was having my treatment in oncology, my back was developing the abscess that I had in my spine. And they'd asked me, we didn't know that at the time, we thought it was something else, and they'd asked me to get on the bed, and they don't have up and down beds in oncology. And it would be a screaming experience for everyone as I tried to get on that bed, because it wasn't fit, really, for me to get onto. We've changed that. And what we're trying to do is change the whole way that people see and access our services. I want people in the healthcare profession to understand what it feels like to be a patient trying to get into our buildings. I want them to understand not just the issues of physical access, but when you're trying to find your way around the building, you might have a sight impairment. I want them to understand how it feels when you're sat in the waiting room and someone goes, blah, blah, blah. How are you supposed to hear that if you've got a hearing impairment? I watched, when I was going through the orthopaedic area, where they would sit you. You'd go to the reception desk and someone would say, take a seat. They wouldn't think, as you hobble in, where is the consultant you're going to see allocated? They just tell you to take a seat. And then someone would come out and call your name. And they'd call it 3 times, because by the time you got there, they thought you weren't there, and the panic that you would feel. And I know that Gregory will talk about toilets, but I would talk about those too, because if you don't know where they are and you're struggling to get around, it's distressing. It really is distressing. So that's how it feels when you've got some impairments, but that's also how it feels when you're feeling a bit poorly. And for any of you who haven't got some of the challenges that some of us in this room have, just close your eyes for a moment. Just close them for a moment. Just go with me. Close close your eyes. Remember a time when you had a bad back. You know, you've just done that gardening, and you've got bad back, and you can barely move. Just think about some of those things I've told you about in the health service at the moment. Now think about how it feels when you've got a cold, and you can't hear very well, and the whole world is muzzy. Think about how that might feel when someone muffles that noise across, how you feel. And then think about a day when you've got a bit of grit in your eye and you just can't see properly. Imagine how frustrating it is that no one's bothered to sign the room properly to help you find a run. You won't feel the intensity and the challenges that many people feel, but you might just touch them, and that's all I'm asking you to do. And then you'll see why Gregory and others, Linda, people in this room who face those challenges every day, implore you to make a difference to the way that we access service. So there's not just a moral case. The other thing I would say, for those of you who are not yet convinced, and I hope I haven't got to convince you, but if I had, then we should be looking at the cost to the NHS. The cost of people not accessing their appointments because it's too difficult, it's too humiliating, it's too frustrating. So that appointment's made, that person misses that appointment, and their health maybe gets worse. Also, we lose that doctor's time. So there's a bottom line business here as well. But for me, that's all irrelevant. What's really important is that we're human beings and we should be treated equally. We should be able to access services. We should be able to think about others and try to see things from other people's points of view and not just from our own. And any of you that have a responsibility, I implore you to think about that every day and ask that question of yourself. Have I seen it from another point of view? How difficult it might be, not just how good it is for me. So, on that note, I would say I was delighted to sponsor this piece of work. Gregory's inspirational to work with. He tires himself out regularly, which he does. But he is inspirational to work with, and it was great that we could get so many people on board across the whole of Suffolk. There were some laggards, and there's still a few. They're very few, I think we can count on one hand. But, you know, we took a very sort of strong stance. It was my view that we weren't going to let anyone off. I mean, I've got the usual, well, you know, we've got so many other pressures at the moment, I don't think we can spare the money for this. And I decided that at that time, we were in the fortunate business of actually having just a little bit more money. I decided that we had to break those barriers down and took the decision that we, in NHS Suffolk, regardless, would sponsor this because I wasn't going to allow them to get off the hook. And once we've done it, they have to keep it going. And that's the commitment that I ask from each of our hospitals and our GP surgeries. We have to keep this going. And I'm really pleased that we've done it. I'm really pleased that we've set a level. I don't think it's enough. I think we've got lots more to do. But at least it's a step forward. So thank you, Gregory, for enabling us to do something. And thank you for inspiring me to take it forward. So I know that Gregory now wants to say a few words. Good luck.
Thank you, Paul.